Hey, what up, y'all? Of course, everybody done already heard about the the YouTube beef that's been going down. Uh, with that being said, let's get into it.
An online feud between two YouTubers turned deadly. Las Vegas police announcing the arrest of Manuel Ruiz, accusing him of killing his online rival and the man's wife. A live stream capturing the moment when gunshots rang out, sending tourists scrambling on the strip. Police releasing new details as questions swirl about what led up to the violence. I'm Kennedy Walker, and I'll walk you through the details. You're watching Law and Crime. Footage circulating online appears to show YouTuber Rodney Finley, known to followers as Finny the Legend, spending his final moments with his wife before both were gunned down in Las Vegas Sunday night.
The officers immediately ran towards that gunfire, and they found two victims who were
All he had to do was let this go. Dumbass.
laying on the sidewalk, suffering from apparent gunshot wounds.
The shooting, happening live on a stream, unfolded on the Las Vegas Strip near the Bellagio Hotel. Police identifying the victims as Rodney Finley and his wife, Tanisha Finley.
Our officers rendered medical aid to both victims, but their efforts to save those victims' lives were unsuccessful.
Undersheriff Andrew Walsh confirming the pair knew the suspect. Police later identifying him as Manuel Ruiz.
The suspect and the victim had previously engaged in some type of conflict using a variety of social media platforms.
Finley and Ruiz reportedly had an ongoing virtual brawl, trading verbal jabs, hosting heated live streams, and calling each other out across platforms. Both men building followings on YouTube, fueling an online rivalry that reportedly stemmed from a copyright issue and other personal tensions. Ruiz, known online as Sin City Manny, posting this video widely believed to be aimed at Finley.
Went through every casino there is. I heard there's one of my biggest fans here in town. I'm dying to see him.
After the shooting, Ruiz allegedly left the scene, ditching his shirt, hat, and the gun before hopping into a rideshare, according to an arrest report obtained by KLAS. Investigators say he later surrendered to police, claiming self-defense. Ruiz reportedly told investigators he believed the Finleys were going to shoot him, saying Tanisha Finley was, quote, dancing in his face, and that he saw Rodney Finley reaching for his waistband, which he thought was a weapon.
Good morning, Mr. Ruiz.
Now, Ruiz is facing 2 counts of murder, appearing in court for the first time as the online...
Bro, you're going down for double unaliving in the state of Nevada. And you look Mexican? Bro, they don't kill your Mexican ass.
feud that once played out on the screen could head to trial.
You were arrested for 2 counts of open murder with use of a deadly weapon. The court did find probable cause existed for your arrest. You need to hear from the district attorney's office today, and then we can hear from the public defender.
YouTube streamers were in attendance at Ruiz's hearing. Marquise Wiley telling KLAS the feud between the 2 content creators was, quote, childish and didn't make any sense. Wiley went on to say that he understands wanting to compete for viewers, but he never thought it would end in violence. And here to break down the story with me is criminal defense attorney Michael Troiano. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today.
Absolutely, pleasure to be here.
Now, this case seems like a collision between internet drama and real-world tragedy. From a legal perspective, though, how do prosecutors start to piece together intent in a case like this?
Well, so far the intent seems pretty clear. Although the media does a great job, they don't always get it right. But when you're self-documenting your own online beef, that kind of makes the detective jobs easy for them, right? So it looks like the victims, the gentleman and his girlfriend or wife, as well as the suspect, were in some sort of online YouTube channel beef for the last year at least. They've been commenting on things related to Vegas, and I guess more specifically or relevant to this situation, their internal hatred or dislike for each other.
92% of people who have tingling or numbness in hands or feet are missing the warning signs of decaying.
I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring this news package. Odoo is a powerful, all-in-one business software that helps you manage everything from sales to accounting and, yes, inventory. Their inventory dashboard makes it easy to track receipts, deliver orders, POS orders, and see what's waiting, late, or back-ordered at a glance. You can pay for receipts, automate vendor reminders, and schedule deliveries all in just a few clicks. Plus, you get full warehouse management, the ability to set picking strategies, and real-time stock visibility. And the best part, Odoo's inventory app syncs seamlessly with your sales and e-commerce apps, so everything stays connected. So right now you can get a free 15-day trial of Odoo's all-in-one business solution and see how it can make your life easier. Check it out at odoo.com/lcnewsinventory. Right, and we've seen online beefs escalate before, but not always to this level. I mean, we're talking about 2 deaths here, caught on camera. Could the digital footprint actually end up being the most powerful evidence in court?
There's a ton of evidence in this case, and again, we're not privy to all the information quite yet, but it looks like there's documentation on both the suspect and the deceased YouTube channels documenting the beef, documenting the dislike for each other, as well as the actual shooting itself. I'm sure your viewers have already seen it or will probably be seeing it as part of this clip, but you see them walking by each other in front of the iconic Bellagio fountains right there on the beautiful Las Vegas Strip, and the accused clearly pulls out a firearm, shoots him. You could see the gun, you could see the muzzle go off, and we have 2 deceased individuals.
And he claimed self-defense, the accused, but as we just stated, the live stream seems to show, things play out a different way. And it also shows just prior video of his that he may have actually been searching for Mr. Finley prior to this. How might prosecutors use that to challenge his version of events?
Yeah, so the online documented beef, but again, the defense attorney can say those are words going back and forth on each side. There was video, you're correct, that I watched that was about 24 hours, if that, prior to, where he states his intent that he's actively searching him out to see him in person for some sort of confrontation. In regards to him claiming...
From what I'm hearing, they were both searching one another out. And Finney's wife was in the middle of this mess as well.
Self-defense, I'm not aware, I haven't been able to see any police reports just yet if he actually spoke to police or gave a statement. From a criminal defense standpoint, that would be a pretty foolish thing to do. You want to invoke your right to remain silent, speak to your attorney so you can keep all options open.
Ooh, I got
but
gout this
at
shoulder.
the end of the day, based on what we've seen so far, it seems very likely that's going to be his only avenue of defense, is to say that, hey, this was an ongoing beef, he was throwing words and threats my way, and when I saw him on the strip, it was commotion. Maybe argue that he threatened him or tried to pull out some sort of weapon on his own, although there is no evidence at this point that weapons were found on him or this other deceased, the female who happened to be in a relationship with that gentleman.
There we go.
Yes, and we know that according to reports, their beef seems to stem back to some type of copyright issue and just other issues that they had because they were going back and forth on social media reportedly. Could the alleged copyright issue that they were fighting over play a role in motive, or does that just become...
Yeah, it is a motive, especially if you monetize.
Or the prosecution strategy. I mean, depending on how serious or petty it is, on which side of the fence you're on, prosecutor or defense, that may be brought in as a highlight and a point of contention, or it might just be white noise and these two engaged in a...
I'm gonna be honest with you. The only lawyers who understand YouTube are the LawTube content creators. If you are monetized, depending on the number of subscribers you have, if your video gets a copyright strike, there can be a chunk of money out of your paycheck that you get from YouTube. Just saying. Let's get back into it.
These two engaged in a silly, immature back and forth that led to the death of two individuals.
It went too far.
It's funny that you use those words, silly and immature, because another YouTuber streamer spoke to a local station and said that he just found this whole thing to be extremely childish, and now we're dealing with 3 lives essentially gone, 2 that are taken,
Yep.
2 people are dead, and 1 that there's a possibility he could spend the rest of his life in jail if he's convicted. If you could just talk about that and just the consequences of this man's actions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in Nevada, we still have the death penalty, so there's an option for the Clark County District Attorney's Office to take this.
Here's why I paused it. He just said that the state of Nevada has a death penalty. Most considering that this guy is Latino. One thing about state Nevada, outside of Vegas, far as I know, it's pretty Republican. Even though Reno is kind of like Vegas, Reno, from what I hear, is pretty Republican, which means these Republican guys will not hesitate to use the guy who did the shooting, who is Latino, and make a sample out of him. And most likely, they are going to make a sample out of him. Not because they want to, but because they can. Let's get back into it.
Take this to the death penalty review panel and make that decision, and they make that based on several factors of mitigating and aggravating circumstances. Even if they decline to seek the death penalty, you're looking at murder with a deadly weapon.
Very much so.
Years at the bottom of the sentence, which you do each and every single day of that 20 years at the bottom of a violent offense, such as a murder in Nevada, per defendant. So there's 40 years on the bottom right then and there if they run them consecutively, and that's not counting the deadly weapon enhancement as well that they can tack on numerous years to that. So that's an additional range of 1 to 20 years. So
yeah, I forgot about the weapon charge.
Life with parole, life without parole, or the death penalty.
I'm sorry for pausing, but to tell you the truth, they don't even need the weapon charge because the idiot live streamed it. The idiot live streamed it on his phone, and then the 2 people that got unalive were live streaming as well. So hell, you got 2 different vantage points of what happened. So hell, he can't defend this shit. He took 2 people straight to HELL up out of here.
To life with parole, life without parole, or the death penalty.
They're going to put him on death row.
And he's about 41 years old, is my understanding. And, I'm turning 42 here in a few weeks, and though I hope I have a lot of life to live, I certainly want to be facing the next 20, 30 years, possibly the rest of my life in prison. And it seems like a real possibility based upon that video.
The ProLine Plus Reimagined features US-made optical quality beams
in prison, and it seems like a real possibility based upon that video.
Right, and what exactly would prosecutors have to prove in order to make this a death penalty case?
It's not necessarily proof. They make the determination on their own, so they basically look at mitigating factors. What's his lifestyle? What's his criminal history? Through my research, it looks like his criminal history was fairly minimal. It looks like there was a DUI or 2 back in California several years ago, so non-violent criminal history to the best of my knowledge. Standing in the community. He's gainfully employed, assuming he was making money from his YouTube channel. This wasn't a racial or hate crime, as far as we could tell at this point. That would be
Nah,
aggravating
I don't
fact that they
believe
were
it was a
targeting
hate
them based
crime.
upon their sexual orientation, race, other facts.
This here wasn't no hate crime. This here was about egos and money. Then.
Of that nature. So if I had to bet on it, I would say that they're probably not going to take this to the death penalty. They're going to take it to the death penalty panel, excuse me. They will review it, but I believe the ultimate determination will be not to seek the death penalty, but he will still be facing the rest of his life in prison.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, man.
Well, according to police,
considering that it looked like that he did this pretty much because he knew these two people most likely will roll up on him. Now I can't say that it would be considered murder in the first, but maybe murder in the second. In the first, I don't think so, but most definitely in the second. Let's get back into it.
Well, according to police, the suspect ditches his clothes and the weapon, takes a ride.
Okay, that's a premeditation. He went ahead and started hiding shit.
A self-defense claim.
Turning himself in was helpful. There's cases where people
respond, whether it's that was helpful. He turned himself in, but him dumping shit don't help him.
And found by law enforcement. So the turning himself in goes to his favor. What he did in the interim with the firearm, his clothes, etc., may be able to be explained by his defense attorney. There's certainly reasons why somebody might not immediately go into a police station with a firearm in hand. But if he destroyed the weapon or it's non-recoverable, and there's other factors that lead them to believe that he was thinking about absconding and not returning, but ultimately did, that's going to be a back and forth as well. We call that consciousness of guilt in the law. If you flee and you don't report something to the police or don't reach out to defense counsel immediately so that they could assist you in that determination.
Okay, still got 10 more minutes.
That prosecutors commonly argue is that they were conscious of their guilt, and that's why they fled. If they truly felt that they were acting in self-defense, they would have stayed.
Yeah, they would have just stayed. But the fact that him run don't help shit.
Immediately contact law enforcement.
Right, and like we discussed, he, according to police, did not stay on the scene. He ran away. Ruiz says, according to police, that he thought that the Finleys were going to shoot him, but no weapon was found. How do courts typically evaluate those split-second decisions?
So at the end of the day, the jury will likely decide not only if he's guilty or not guilty, but in murder cases, typically the jury is the one who decides the sentencing. In order to waive your right to have the jury sentence you, which is very unique in the state of Nevada, at least strictly for murder cases, both parties, being the prosecution and the defense, would have to waive that and say, we both agree we're going to allow the judge to specifically sentence him in this case. So it really determines. So under your hypothetical, if the judge, when you say the courts, was the one that hypothetically was to render this sentence, they're going to determine all of the factors. And I think really the most damning information is going to be, what was this beef really about? Was this about something as simple as a white collar copyright issue? How relevant is that even to the case? It doesn't seem like there was, at least at this point, I'm sure more videos will surface, but actual threats of violence, like, next time I see you, you're dead on sight. I've had those cases where there's long, drawn-out beefs, and the argument typically is, and you need to demonstrate that as defense counsel, is that my client was under a firm and realistic belief that the next time he ran into that individual, he was dead on sight and had no option to wait for the other person to shoot him first. You know, what's the old saying that I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6? That's how you need to frame the story in context of a criminal trial.
Right. Well, it seems like this, and I guess, we will hear and find out more information as, the days go on, but it just seems like this was very petty. things that they were arguing over. It didn't seem like it was something big enough for someone to lose their life. He reportedly told police, according to documents, that Tanisha, which was Mr. Finley's wife, was dancing in his face. Even the fact that he said that to police, could that argument that he felt provoked hold any legal weight, both for his defense and, for the prosecution as well?
I like how you frame that question because, yes, it's always a two-way street, so the prosecution can show how unhinged this...
Damn, it feels a little warm.
Do you want a massive play?
Street, so the prosecution can show how unhinged this individual was, that this was over petty, online, childish beef interaction that led to literally 2 people being executed in one of the most iconic landmarks in the city of Las Vegas, and if not the world. And then from the defense side, not every case is great, right? We sometimes refer to that as, that's not a good fact. It's not a good fact. It's not great evidence as what specifically he did on that video. But if there's not going to be a negotiation, if that your client is not inclined to try to resolve the case and they're set on going to trial, then you have to do what you have to do and deal with the facts that you have on that particular case. And you've got to try to paint these alleged victims as the instigators and that they were violent and that he had a reasonable belief that there was imminent death or substantial bodily harm, and he had no choice but to pull the firearm. The video doesn't show that, to be clear, but that's the argument his defense team is going to have to make if he decides to go to trial.
Right, and we're just speaking of, just reasonably fearing for your life, because in cases that is true, there are people that are fearful and feel like they really do need to protect themselves. But what is the threshold for proving that you reasonably fear for your life in the state of Nevada, especially in a public place like the Strip, right? Because it wasn't like someone came into your home or anything like that. This is a strip filled with hundreds, if not thousands of people.
Yeah, thousands of
absolutely.
people.
Nevada protects people regardless, home, outside, but you have much more protections inside your vehicle or inside your home or inside an office or some sort of structure. So if this immature YouTube beef turned into him, the suspect in this case finding the victim's address and breaking through his front door, or vice versa, let me flip that would be a completely different situation. Very likely can be justified to shoot and kill somebody on site if they break in and enter your home.
No justification for it.
But in a situation like this, a public standard, really what the standard is going to be for the jury and that the prosecution is going to harp on is not what the suspect felt at that time. He can argue all day that he was emotionally distressed and this copyright issue was ruining his life and she was dancing in his face, mocking him. Sure, he can jump up and down and say that, but the prosecution will look the jury in the eyes and say, what would a reasonable person do in this situation? Not him. It is a reasonable person standard. So the jury is going to internalize it and say, well, what would I do? Now, that's strictly prohibited. You can't tell the jury, what would you do? But we're all adults and we all have a working brain and know what the jury is going to think when you say reasonable person, because although we all have our good and bad days, we all love to believe we are the reasonable person, right? So what a reasonable person would do under that situation is the standard, which really translates to the jury sitting there. Would I have gunned down 2 people in front of the Bellagio because some guy that was talking mess about me online happened to walk by me?
Right. And in a case like this, with a lot of evidence, at least it appears to be, with all just the videos that both the prosecution and defense will have to go through, if there are hours of live streams, comments, and past videos, who decides what's admissible and what's just internet noise?
Great question. Yeah, so I'm sure there's going to be hundreds of hours, if not more, on both sides of this. And that's going to be a real long battle in regards to the discovery. Yet another reason why, many reasons why, but yet another reason why I wouldn't imagine this trial goes anytime soon, because they're going to need to archive that, subpoena YouTube. Both the defense attorney and the prosecution are going to pile through that. And absolutely, there's going to be arguments and motion and limines probably on both sides of saying, no, this is relevant, the jury needs to see that. And no, it's not relevant, it's just meant to inflame the jury or prejudice them. That definitely is going to be a point of contention in this trial, absolutely.
Would you expect the defense to lean heavily into Ruiz's mental state, or are they more likely to argue fear and panic?
I mean, those kind of go one and the same in my experience. Well, what is your current mental state? Did that lead to fear, panic, etc.? But again, you're walking that tightrope as a defense attorney and the defendant in this particular charge, because you don't want your client to seem unhinged and unreasonable, which is hard to do when you have a point-blank shooting on video and the victims ended up not having any weapon on them. So you've got to demonstrate the actual fear that your client says they had for great substantial bodily harm and or their life, and the imminent fear that they felt that he was going to take away his life and hurt him at that exact moment. But you also don't want to go all the way over the edge and then have the jury think, okay, he's just completely unhinged and a lunatic. This is not a reasonable person. It's a very, very tight rope to walk.
With this going viral, can either side get a fair trial in Las Vegas? I know we were just talking about the jury.
Yeah, I mean, the defense could potentially move for a change of venue. They could go up north to some of the other jurisdictions up there. I don't necessarily know if this is the type of case. I mean, first of all, judges are reluctant to do that. And even though it's viral and it's in the media, there's plenty of cases that are in the media. We had an O.J. Simpson trial out here, and who's more famous than O.J. at the time of that occurred. There's numerous other trials and cases here in Las Vegas and celebrities that I could name that were cases stayed here in Clark County. So as far as it getting moved, very doubtful. A fair trial, I don't know why not. Again, there's not any information out that really elicits those type of things where you may think you're not going to get a fair trial. Like if it's a politically motivated crime, right, then you're going to say, okay, half the jury or X amount of the jury, well, they vote for this guy, and so they're not going to listen to that guy, or vice versa. Or if it was purely racially motivated, those kind of things that were, as human beings, kind of entrenched. It's like, yeah, I can listen to the law and I can be fair, I can try to, but it's kind of hard to parse some of that stuff, even though we're instructed to, based upon that person's position, political beliefs, religious beliefs, whatever it may be. I don't think any of that is here. It just seems like two individuals mocking each other over childish things on the internet, and one person absolutely threw away multiple lives, as you said earlier, and took it to the extreme. Maybe more will come out down the line, that there was a lot more to this than we know, but on the surface, it seems beyond tragic.
Very tragic.
Hi. Meet Woodger.
Tragic.
Right, and just speaking of the internet, it can be a double-edged sword here. Could Ruiz's own followers be called to testify, possibly even against him?
I'm not necessarily sure about the followers, because if you're bringing a follower, right, it's just like one of your viewers. And if there was a trial, hypothetically, about our interview today, they're not necessarily an expert, right? It would be the jury who would watch this interview.
Oh, Lord, I did not mean to do that.
And make some determination on what they did or did not see during our exchange. So a viewer or a fan, unless they were able to provide specific insight, like such as the suspect was direct messaging him separately and trying to elicit information, hey, can you help me find him, like things like that, like specific identifiable information that is from a first person point of view from a follower. Maybe just somebody is saying, oh, hey, I'm a fan, I watched the show or I watched the stream. They're not going to be able to testify because they're not going to bring anything to it. If it's really just about the video and an argument, about what is on the video or what the intent was he being silly, was he being coy, was he being serious? That's a determination of fact, which is meant for the jury.
Well, what's the chances that this could just end in a plea deal and it doesn't even go to trial?
I mean, if I'm wrong and they get death penalty approved, I'd say that he's going to be begging for a deal. And a lot of those cases that you see that clearly there's a high level of evidence and potential guilt there that go to trial, specifically when the death penalty is involved, is because they're flat out that day, meaning the district attorney's office is not giving an offer. If the offer's death, no one is taking that, right? I mean, it's pretty rare. I'm aware of one case in Nevada in the last 25 years where the individual actually petitioned the court to allow them to go forward with the death penalty. So that's definitely to be determined.
Well, this is a case
We're
that
done
will
here.
keep on